Brothers and sisters, 7 times in the Gospel of John, we hear what we call the I am statements. Jesus 7 times says, I am something. I am the light of the world. I am the good shepherd. I am the gate of the sheep. I'm the resurrection and the life. Today we encounter one of those I am statements in the Gospel of John. And it's when Jesus is speaking with his disciples and he wants to remind them not to be troubled, not to be afraid, because he's going to this place to prepare a dwelling for us, that God is going to prepare a place for us to live. And Thomas, we just came out of a couple weeks ago hearing the story of doubting Thomas. Thomas, the kind of the realist, asked this very real question, Lord, how can we know the way? We don't even know where you're going. Thomas knows that a map is only useful if you know the destination. Being handed a map and not being told where you're going is of no use. Just to see streets and directions. I mean, if you don't know which street to follow, doesn't do any good to have a map. And so, indeed, Thomas says, well, how can we know the way? We don't know where you're going. You haven't told us exactly where it is that you're headed. How do we follow you? How do we get to heaven? And so Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus identifies himself as the way, that he is the very map. He is the compass of our lives. That it's precisely by the life of Jesus, by following Jesus, that we find our way to where he's going. Because in following Jesus, he becomes this navigational beacon for us. And he guides us to where we're meant to be. And so Jesus has written the law of God deep within our hearts, that all of our hearts have the law of God written deep within them. That our hearts cry out for God. And so by way of our hearts, we have this map placed in the depths of our hearts, that our hearts are made for God. And St. Augustine says, we're not at rest until finally we rest in thee, till we rest in God. You know, there's a theology of the body conference going on, and it's a free conference. Normally this would be a conference that many people would attend, but now many more people are invited to attend online, and it's entirely free. And so you can register and see many talks by some of the best Catholic speakers, and it's all on this topic that the body itself, our hearts, our physical bodies as we have them, reveal something of God to us. That they become for us that map, that way by which we encounter God more deeply in our lives. I was just listening to a few of the talks so far, and there's a number of brilliant ones, but one of them was Father Jacques Philippe, and he's a very holy priest. Not the most dynamic speaker, but a very holy priest. And he spoke about how pain can be an opening and an increase of the longing for God in our lives. How spiritual kind of dryness and pain can actually awaken in us a deeper longing for God. That in this moment that we're living, that the ache of our hearts is a good thing. It's that ache of our hearts that allows us to long for God, to love God more fully, to love God more deeply. And indeed, many of you have already expressed that same sentiment. That sentiment of the absence from Mass causing that deeper longing within you. that deeper longing for Christ. That this absence kind of brings out this fire in our hearts. Tito was also strengthened today by another talk I listened to by Leo Darrow, and it was on the death of Pope John Paul II. John Paul II was instrumental in kind of developing this, what we call today, the theology of the body. And John Paul II was, if there's one phrase for which he was known, it's that phrase that he uttered when he walked out first as he was elected Pope. The very first thing that he said as he walked onto the balcony of St. Peter's Square, he said, "Be not afraid, open wide the doors to Christ. Open wide your hearts to Christ. Be not afraid." That was the central message of John Paul II, and one that is reverberated all throughout his life. And it's that same phrase that Jesus echoes in our gospel today. Do not be afraid. I'm going to lead you to the place where you're going. That with Christ as our light, we do not need to fear. That Christ can be for us that guiding map that takes us to that dwelling place that we need to be. So if we follow Christ, we're already on the way. We don't need to worry about exactly where we're going, exactly where Christ is taking us. So long as Christ is taking us, we're on the right journey. We're on the way if we follow Christ. The way, the truth, and the life today. Amen.